this is I mean, the issue we are studying is the impact of ISDS cross-border MA features. So we know that in many bilateral trade agreements or multilateral trade agreements, they have this kind of provision of ISDS, which allows investors to bring claims of treaty violations to arbitration tribunals outside of the host state. Now, many people say that the signing and the ratification of treaties and the adoption of the ISDS scheme help FDI host states to build up country credibility by making commitment to protecting foreign investors from the treaty partner country. So that's the so-called commitment effect, and sending a signal of foreign investor protection to investors from other countries. So it's a so-called signaling effect, right? So now, if ISDS disputes arise, we expect that the commitment effect and the signaling effect can be undermined. We therefore examine these two types of effects. So we consider two types of effects. One is the main effect, right, between the claimant home country and the respondent state. We call they are the focal home country and the focal host state. So these are the main effects. And we also look at various spillover effects. Spillover, there could be cross-nationality and cross-industry spillover effects. And we conduct the deal level analysis of host of deal features. Now the complicated part seems to be here. Now, we first look at country level effects, country level breach of commitment effect. By country level, we mean that we don't consider the industry differences. So in this main effect at the country level, we look at this kind of scenario. If some firms in any industry from the focal home country, they have disputes with the host country state government, then home country investors would be discouraged from making MA deals in the host country, We don't control for any control for a specific industry. Now, then at the country level, we also look at the two main spillover effects, This one is called the cross-home country spillover effect. So if a third country investor has ISDS dispute with the host state, home country investors would fear that this host state is truly could be predatory or whatever, or change policy quite often. Then home country investors would be deterred from making investment in the host country. So we call it a cross-home country spillover effect. Now, the second country level spillover effect is we call it cross-host country spillover effect. So if home country investors, focal home country investors, have disputes with a third state government, they have dispute, then home country investors could worry that these focal host states could behave similarly, for example, have similar trouble, political risk arising there, then they would be reluctant to invest in this focal host country. So this is, we call it the cross-host country spillover effect. And then, so far, the three country level effects mingle both cross-national and cross-industry effects. So in order to separate the two types of effects and highlight the cross-nationality transmission of the shock, we look at the industry level breach of commitment effect, and the two major main spillover effects. So the industry level breach of commitment effect actually similar to the country level, except that we control for industry, right? So and the second so the second the spillover effect, yeah, the so-called cross home country within industry spillover effect, right? So as third country investors in a particular industry have ISDS disputes with the focal host country, then focal home country investors would in the same industry, in the focal industry, would fear that the host country could do something similar to them, and then they will be discouraged from investing in the focal host country, right? And the cross-host country within industry spillover effects, right? So, so if focal home country investors have disputes with a third country as a host state, right, then they are likely to be discouraged from making investment in the host country, focal host country. Or alternatively, there could be something like a flight to safe haven effect, right? So focal home country investors, right, have disputes with the third country host government, then this focal host country could seem better, right? A better destination for their investment. So there could be a relocation of investment from this third country to the host country. So and then we go further to look at another dimension of spillover. That's a cross-industry transmission of shocks, right? Cross-industry. So the seventh type of effect we look at is within host country cross-industry spillover effects, right? So so if other home country investors, right, have dispute with the host state, focal host state government in industry B, then these focal home country investors engaged in industry A may be discouraged from making investment in industry A in the focal host country, right? So we call that within host country cross industry spillover. And the final one we look at is even more remote, right? Basically, we call it within host country, cross home country, cross industry spillover effect. So when firms from non-focal home countries operating in non-focal industries in the focal target country have ISDS disputes with the focal host state, acquirers from the focal home country could be adversely affected in making investment in the focal industry of the focal target country. Right? So we have two layers of cross-nationality spillover and cross-industry spillover. And the data and variables are from the data on ISDS disputes are from the United Nations UNCTAD database, cross-border merger acquisition data from Thomson 1. And we basically conduct repeated cross-section analysis. So you can, in some sense, it's a kind of generalized DID model, right? We look at some effect, some right-hand side variable, the country level disputes, and look at their effect on deal feature. Now let me, because of time constraint, let me mention some of the deal features we look at. Right. Some of the deal features are quite commonly used, like the amount of acquisition deals initiated, deal value. Second, the completion of merger deal initiated. And third, the time duration to deal consummation. And fourth, the likelihood of acquisition of state-controlled targets versus non-state controlled targets. Many other aspects. Right, for example, the ownership stake of acquisition, right, how much ownership mean the ownership stake could mean the exposure to political risk in the host country, right? So, and also the likelihood of acquisition of targets in the high-tech industry, in the sensitive tech sectors, right? This kind of thing. And we also look at some other, also cost of acquisition, like a bid premium, right? This kind of thing. Now, let me give a very brief description of the main findings. So we look at the three aspects. One is the ISDS claims initiated. Second aspect is the types of ISDS claims, like a direct expropriation or indirect expropriation. The third part is ISDS claim adjudication, the judgment that the ruling, the verdict laid out by the arbitration tribunal, right? So for the ISDS claims initiated, basically we find quite a strong effect, the main effect, the breach of the commitment effect. That means the merger flow between the focal home country and the focal host state is significantly affected negatively, right? And the cross home country spillover effect is also often statistically significant. That means if other home country investors have trouble with the focal state government, focal home country investors could be discouraged from investing in the focal host state, right? Host state. But this spillover effect is still weaker than the direct main effect, right? Main effect. And we found that the cross-host country spillover effect is mostly insignificant. Okay, and the industry level, right? Industry level analysis shows some signs, produces some effects of flight to safe haven effect from this part of the cross-host country within industry effect. So there are some weak evidence that, right, when focal home country investors have disputes with a third party host state, they will increase investment in this focal host state. Okay, and then we run a house price comparison, right, of industry level breach of commitment effect and spillover effect. We verify that.
Mr. Du, if you may sum up a little quickly. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay. So basically, the main effect and the within host country, within industry spill effect are mostly significant, right? Mostly significant. And for direct expropriation versus indirect expropriation, right? The direct expropriation claims capture most of the significant results. Indirect expropriations are weaker, but there are also some significant results. And then for adjudication, we find that investor win cases have some important significant results. There's called, we can call it a substantial effect that verify the misconduct of the respondent state. So they could generate negative effects on merger deal flow to the respondent state. But state win cases exhibit much weaker results. Probably this kind of acquittal effect is rather weak, relatively quite weak. Okay, so because of time constraint, I have to stop here. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.